Good day. My name is Arlene Stephen, and on behalf of the Education Committee of the PSCU Credit Union, I would like to provide you with a few tips for keeping financially fit during and after the COVID-19 crisis. The coronavirus has had far-reaching impacts globally. The impact of the virus can be categorized into three waves. The first wave had the immediate effect of shutting down most industries with some exceptions. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have placed workers into two categories. The first is workers in essential services who must continue working during this time of crisis. For these workers, they may be engaged in their normal workload, in which case their salary would not be affected. Alternatively, there may be a reduced workload and therefore reduced income. Any worker who has to continue working during this crisis runs a higher risk of exposure to the disease. We also have the situation of school-aged children having to stay at home and the attendant issues regarding supervision for those households where the adults have to work. All in all, the future for these workers remains uncertain. Another scenario is in relation to persons who are considered to be working in non-essential industries. These workers are now either faced with an unexpected salary reduction as they are underemployed, or with no salary as they find themselves unemployed. Because of the unexpected nature of this crisis, persons' immediate concerns are regarding the provision for their families and the payment of bills with uncertain income. Some persons are also concerned about whether they will still have a job to go back to, or if they will be re-employed in instances where their services were terminated. For most of us, we would have mapped out our financial goals for the year at the beginning of January. These goals would probably include providing for major purchases, savings, bill payments, insurance, education, and even retirement savings. While many of these financial goals still remain important to us, COVID-19 has thrown a spanner in the works, and we now have to reassess how we can attain those goals. The first thing you need to do in order to manage this second wave is to determine how much income you can rely on. You can do this simply by using pen and paper and dividing a sheet of paper into three columns. The first column will be your income. This will include salary, social grants, returns on fixed deposits, in short, any money that comes in to you. You also need to calculate the total amount of savings you have to access, including any emergency savings, assuming you have one. Do you have alternate sources of income? Side hustle? Include that too. In the second column, you would list all of your expenses. Remember, there are three types of expenses. Fixed expenses are due on the same date every month, and the cost is the same each month. Rent or mortgage and loans or hire purchase fall into this category. There are also variable expenses that occur every month, but the amount may change based on usage or circumstances. This will include your grocery bill, and for those of us with children at home at this time, your bill will have gone up. Electricity and phone bills may vary based on your usage. Then there are periodic expenses, which may have to be paid quarterly or annually, and will include things like tuition and insurance. Next, you need to match your income to those expenses. If your income exceeds your expenses, you need to develop a budget to decide how to apportion your income among your needs. If your expenses exceed your income, you need to reassess to see how or where expenses can be reduced. So your third column will be the level of priority you give to these expenses. What do you absolutely have to pay? What can be deferred and for how long? Remember, any intention to defer must be discussed with the provider to whom you owe this money. Thankfully, during this crisis, some service providers have already agreed to the deferral of some payments for a few months. In some cases, this deferral is automatic, and in some cases, you have to make a request. Remember, deferral does not mean that your debt is forgiven. It is still owed, but you have a longer time before you need to pay it. It is your responsibility to clarify exactly what your options are in such instances, and you should have your agreement in writing for your own protection. One of the most immediate tools that you have to manage this crisis is your credit union membership. Engage your credit union for financial advice on weathering this crisis. Make use of your credit union membership to participate in skills enhancement. Review useful tips posted on our website or social media platforms. We have provided some links on the slide. Consider free online training to enhance your skills. Take a low-interest loan to register for courses from educational institutions. If you are not yet a member, you can apply for membership online using the link provided at the bottom of this slide. Members who haven't signed up for online banking should take advantage of the credit union's online banking services. Did you know you can use PSCU'S online banking services to check account balances, transfer funds internally, apply for a loan, make a loan payment, request statements, request a letter or a check? Sign up for our online banking services. Use our mobile app. You can use the link below to submit your online banking application. Did you know that as a member of PSCU Credit Union, you can access the credit union's coronavirus relief loan? That loan attracts an interest of 0.5% per month on up to $15,000 for 24 months. If you have an existing loan, you can apply for a deferral of loan payment, restructured payment terms, or a renegotiation of terms. Send us your request by completing the deferral loan installment form at the link on this slide. Terms and conditions will apply. It is an unfortunate fact that when crises occur, scam artists abound. These persons use their victims' fears of the uncertainty of the future to con them out of their hard-earned money. On the next two slides, I will discuss two common schemes that you should look out for at this time. A pyramid scheme is really a model, the main characteristic of which is that participants or investors only make money by recruiting more participants or investors. Usually, no product or service is delivered. Elements of a pyramid scheme can include investments paying interest monthly, interest rates above market rates, programs running for defined periods, commonly 1 year or less. The promoters usually encourage you to roll over for another period. Remember, any scheme that requires new investors to pay existing investors is a fraud. In affinity fraud, scammers insert themselves into specific groups or may actually be members of the group. This can comprise members of your social circle, including family members, religious communities, clubs focused on the elderly, professional associations, and even church groups. This approach will help them to engender trust, since you will be more skeptical about persons who are not from your particular group or association. They use high-pressure sales tactics to bombard you with information, dwelling on your fears, and offering what seems to be a lifeline and a sure thing with high returns to make you money in these uncertain economic times. Always remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. Do the necessary research to make sure that any financial opportunity is legitimate before turning over your hard-earned money. All crises come to an end at some point. It is important to be prepared for life post-crisis. It is while we are still in the crisis that we should begin to reevaluate and make a plan so that we can better manage our resources once the crisis is over. It is important to use this time to reevaluate your financial situation. Do you have a job to go back to? If yes, you are fortunate. Will your income be affected? Will your hours be reduced as the organization for which you work gets back to a full schedule? You will need to make provisions for such a situation. Even if you have a job to go back to, use this time to retool so that you can enhance your skills and make yourself more marketable, either in the same organization or industry in which you were working, or even in an entirely new industry. If this crisis has taught us nothing else, I am sure we will all agree on how important it is to have an emergency savings plan. Most financial gurus recommend that persons put aside a minimum of 3 to 6 months of gross income for a rainy day. Use technology to manage your finances remotely, not just during this crisis, but going forward into the foreseeable future. Make a plan. Create a rainy day fund. You can work with your credit union to create an emergency savings fund. This money can be placed in a specific account which you will only access in an emergency. Make yourself more marketable. You should always be in a continuous learning mode and make an annual plan to enhance your skills and potential for earnings. Increase your earning potential. Use your skills to develop a side hustle and earn additional income. A side hustle can help to bridge the gap between your regular salary and your competing needs. Retirees can use the skills that they learned over their careers to earn additional income. You can also use the income from that side hustle specifically for savings and use your regular income for all of your expenses. In managing your resources, remember these points. Set your financial goals, giving each an appropriate level of priority. Create an annual budget, broken into monthly components, designed to achieve your goals. Use the 50-30-20 rule to divide your take-home income into 3 categories: 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and debt repayment. Ensure that you have an emergency fund with the equivalent of 3 to 6 months' salary in an account that is not your regular savings account. Consider entrepreneurship to increase your disposable income. In closing, here are some lessons which we can all learn to help us remain financially fit during and after a crisis. Your credit union is here to help with financial advice, provisioning, and skills training. Engage in goal setting every year, but be prepared to adjust. Prepare a budget and stick to it. Never become complacent. Always enhance your skills. Learn new skills to become more marketable. Beware of fraudsters who will use this crisis to con you out of your hard-earned money. Remember, you can visit the PSCU's Financial Assistance and COVID-19 Corner on the website for information on financial relief, business operations, digital banking, flattening the curve, and warnings about COVID-19 scams. It was my pleasure to provide you with some tips to help you during this time of crisis on behalf of the Education Committee of the PSCU Credit Union. Feel free to send any questions via email to feedback@pscutt.com. Remember, on us you can rely. Thank you for watching.